Welcome inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well on this Monday before the big election day. Everybody is obviously going to be talking about the election tomorrow, so we wanted to stop by and do a show a day before. So we are here a day early, but nevertheless, there's a lot of college football to unpack from this past weekend. And Dan Wolken from the USA Today is going to stop by and talk to us about all of the issues in college football. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as Heath and I review what happened this past weekend in college football only on the Stingray Show.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you!
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty, what an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game. What a play. Wow. Welcome inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show. I am your host, Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, and I hope everybody's doing well on this Monday. And I tell you what, man, it was pretty cold. You know, I had some cold temperatures earlier this morning, and let me go ahead and pop up my co-host, Heath. Heath, how's it going, my friend?
Steven, we're making it, brother. How about you?
I'm doing good, man. I don't know about you, but this morning at my house, it was 36 degrees. I'm telling you, man, it is downright cold.
At my house, it was loud, and a bunch of kids were getting ready for school. That's
Yes.
what was going on at my house. No, it was a little chilly this morning. I was about to say, it's wonderful weather right now. We're going to be approaching the 70s here today. So warm weather here in the Mid-South, here in Northwest Mississippi, the Memphis, Tennessee area. We're doing quite well. We only get like 10 days of great weather here anyway, so this is like one of them.
Well, man, let me just go ahead and ask you, did you get to watch any of the big college football matchups this past weekend?
Got to watch a little bit. Watched more highlights than anything. You know, it's amazing, Stephen, and I got a feeling we're going to go over this. A little tease for everybody. Why do officials and conferences keep protecting certain people? Why? I don't understand. I know.
My point exactly, man. So it's very frustrating out there. But, man, I tell you what, there's a lot to uncover this weekend and unpack, especially about the big fight that went on down in the swamp.
Yes.
Dan Mullen. Let's go ahead and get the elephant out of the room, man. What did you think about the late hit and the issue with Mullen and Drinkowitz down there between Missouri and Florida? That was not a good look for the SEC East.
Yeah, not good for SEC,
No.
not good look for college football, not a good look for either university, not a good look for anyone involved. It's not a good look. I think that if you're guilty, I think you had to wear a Darth Vader outfit to the post-game conference. So
Yes.
as Dan Mullen got to. Look, I think that's a late hit. I definitely think that the officials need to protect not only quarterbacks but everybody. I mean, this is a crazy time with COVID, and you don't know who you got from week to week, and your starters are in and out, and everything's fluctuating. And we know that Florida has had just crazy concerns with COVID and have missed multiple games. And so I can understand wanting your quarterback protected, and you haven't had really a full practice with everyone there yet, and now you're not going to protect the players. Yeah, feelings are over the top, but
Yes.
Stephen, just like everything else in life, it's not how you act to the problem; it's how you react to the problem. And Dan Mullen, after he went overboard with his reaction, kept playing that up when he was waving his arms there before halftime, trying to get the crowd into it. And Dan Mullen's been very big on this, and this is no secret. Dan Mullen likes to send messages the first play of the game during a game.
Definitely.
He's always done that. He likes to send messages to the other team. This is what's going to happen. This is what I'm going to do all day to you. Mullen still does that. I thought it was quite funny come second half that they just lined up and ran straight at Missouri.
Yes.
I mean, it was just pure physical. We're fixing to beat your tails into the ground kind of football. Put your butt in the dirt, make you hurt football.
That's right. And they started to run Kyle Trask too, which I'm sure that they put on film to go on ahead and show the Georgia Bulldogs for that. But, man, I got to tell you what, I was really, really disappointed in the outcome of that fight. And actually today, the SEC handed out Dan Mullen a $25,000 fine, which I think is nothing more but a slap on the wrist, which is not good, but it is what it is. But, man, I tell you what, Florida and Kadarius Toney and those guys were just way too much for Missouri. And honestly, did Missouri take a step back? Yes, but they still had some encouraging plays. Right there earlier in the highlights you saw, they picked off Trask and took it back for a touchdown. So I still think that this team is improving, and I still think that this team is a good football team, and I think Drinkowitz is the right coach for Missouri. What do you think?
Coach Drink, he is, I did not give him much fanfare coming in with the job hire. I mean, I kind of ranked it there next to Sam Pittman. Do those two coaching hires look to be great now?
Yeah.
Better than Leach, better than Lane Kiffin, better than anything else that you're seeing across the country right now. So, Coach Drink, Sammy Pittman, when we had Mark Schlabach on last week, he said that when those two guys play, the winner's going to be SEC Coach of the Year, whoever wins that game. I have to agree with that statement. I think Coach Drink's doing a great job. Drinkwitz has got them playing well above their heads. They've got to figure out things on defense, but offense is starting to come together. And, and that's a crazy thing. And, Stephen, here's the fun thing if you're a Missouri fan, and I know we have a lot of Missouri fans that follow the show, and this is something that'll make you smile, is – everybody's bad on defense in 2020. Everybody's bad on defense. So, Drinkowitz's team may not be that far off of being a very serious competitor. Right. They figure some things out on defense, and man, that could be something big going on up in Clemson.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, man, let me also ask you about this. Did you happen to see last Friday night after we got through on the show, the Minnesota and Maryland win or football game? That was an impressive game from Tallulah Tagovailoa. That was, without a doubt, the best performance. I mean, he pretty much put that team on his back.
Is after, if we're just judging for 1 week, is he the best quarterback in the family?
I don't know. I didn't watch any of the NFL games, so you'll have to tell me.
I was about to say, Talia, he made something big happen. I don't think we gave much credit to that game, much fanfare to that game as well. We thought Maryland's uniforms would break the internet, and we just kind of moved on when we were making our predictions the other day. Give it up to him. Give it up to Maryland and what's going on. 2020, this is the craziest, season we've ever seen. I mean, it's just so inconsistent. It's so overboard. It's so over the top. It's so disappointing. Everything's just been crazy this year. I think that's the best word, is crazy. Nothing makes sense in 2020 on and off the football field. But I mean, look at that. He went in untouched.
Yes.
So I mean, anytime you give a team hope, I don't care if you're talking about Pee Wee football up into a Super Bowl game. Anytime you give team hope, they are going to stick around and they're going to make a game of it. And hey, face it, the Golden Gophers gave Maryland hope from the beginning.
Yeah.
And there you go, man. There you go. I mean, it's just crazy to see them come back there in the fourth quarter to make that happen. And it's just crazy.
And by the way, Maryland was 0-71 when trailing by 17 plus points entering the fourth quarter. They now have a win.
That's just nuts. That's just nuts. Hey, good for Maryland. Good for the Terps.
Yes.
But Stephen, hey, am I not wrong on this one? This is why we watch the games. This is why we love college football. It's so unpredictable. It's crazy. I think this just kind of came to me. I think this season is kind of like the NCAA big dance. The reason we watch is for the upsets and the craziness and the little team to move on. And I think that's kind of what's happening here in 2020.
Right.
Yeah, we still have Clemson. Yeah, we still have Alabama. Yeah, we still have the powers that be. We still have conferences protecting schools in certain situations, and we'll get into that here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But the craziness of it, this is what makes it fun.
Yes. Well, let's go on ahead and talk about another almost upset this past weekend, and boy, would this have been something else without the Trevor Lawrence issue. The backup quarterback actually looked pretty good in the second half. He struggled in the first half, and actually Boston College took a 21-7 lead on that scoop and score, and then later on they took a 28-7 lead. But then ultimately Clemson was Clemson. They came on back, and they ultimately won that game 34-28, setting up a huge game with Notre Dame this weekend in Notre Dame Stadium.
Yeah, who's not going to be watching that game? That's the question.
Yes.
I don't know if it's going to be a good game or not. I think it still will be a good game. But man, oh man, oh man. Clemson, I'm not saying you're hitting the panic button, but you know where it's at and you're looking at it.
Yes.
Once again, Steven, it's 2020, COVID. It's craziness. You don't have the same team every week.
I know.
That's why, Dan Mullen was a little intense about the flag not being thrown on his quarterback. We don't know what team we're going to have from week to week. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out during the week. There's still going to be plenty of hype for this game. It might be a blowout one way or the other. I don't know. That's why we're going to watch. But I do like the fact that how crazy 2020 has been. It's still giving us some good football.
And that was the largest home comeback in school history for Clemson. They trailed 28-10 in the second quarter. So that's impressive. And hats off to the backup quarterback for Trevor Lawrence. Now, his name I cannot pronounce, and I'm not going to.
Well, let's move on then.
But, man, all right, let's go on ahead and talk about the
Hooked on phonics?
What now?
Hooked on phonics? Since you can't pronounce his name? Is that what we're going to talk about now?
No. Let's go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room in the SEC East. How are you happy with a 14-3 win over Kentucky? How are you excited and happy if you are Kirby Smart with that performance? That right there was a horrible performance by Georgia. And if Kentucky had any offense, they would have knocked off the Georgia Bulldogs. That is not a good look heading into the cocktail party this weekend.
Well, Stephen, we've talked about this multiple times on the show. We talked about it with A&M and Vandy at the first week of the season. Maybe A&M was just looking ahead and preparing ahead and not really giving Vandy much. And Vandy showed they were a little bit more that game. And Vandy we hadn't seen Vandy since be anywhere close to that good. That might be the same situation that Georgia spent a little too much time this week preparing for Florida. And, it just kind of they kind of went through the motions and everything else during practice this week and also during this game. If you're Georgia, are you concerned about this if you're a Georgia fan?
Definitely.
I can't see how you can't be. Is it to be panicked yet? Not yet. You still got to play the game.
Right.
But, man, that Florida offense is really starting to take stride and things are starting to happen. Florida defense is still a work in progress. They're starting to come together. They're getting better each week. I will say that.
Yes.
So it's going to be fun. I mean, I know the Georgia defense is going to throw a lot of different looks. But Cal Trask is, he's not a spring chicken. He's a seasoned veteran now. I don't know, Stephen. I mean, Georgia, it's just not – they're not dominating games. It's like they're just getting by.
Yes.
So, there's obviously problems on offense. There's problems. And here's another thing, Stephen. They've had a couple of guys already announced that they're going to be out for this game. There was a car accident involving a player. And so they've got injuries, they've got problems, they've got issues, and that offense is not looking good at all.
No. And then, of course, you have the issues with the suspensions down at Florida, too. So that could be interesting.
Yeah. So I was about to say they kind of cancel each other out. So there's a little bit of a sandbag issue going on there of things getting weighed out. And it's going to be fun to see what happens Saturday. Again, this is why we watch. You don't get to put – very rarely do you get to put your best 11 against their best 11. It always comes down to depth. It always comes down sometimes to 3 deep. When we had Hugh Freeze on the show earlier this year, he talked about that. You've got to be 3 deep to compete at a very high level. Right. And we're about to see what's going to go on with Georgia and Florida. Hey, here's something fun. I mean, that we all know. We know where Georgia stands on 3 deep with their quarterback depth. I mean, we're seeing it every week. So it's just crazy. This is just a crazy season.
And, dude, by the way, I do want to also say this, too. Let's go ahead and talk about the other huge news from this past weekend. One was the fight down in the swamp. The other one happened up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it was not – what now?
Mr. Khaki Pants.
Man, it was not good if you're a Michigan fan. Man, what is going on with Michigan right now? And my question to you was that the nail in the coffin for Jim Harbaugh? I honestly think that was the nail in the coffin for Jim Harbaugh and tenure at Michigan.
I don't think it's the nail in the coffin, but we all know where the nails and hammer are now. We talked about on the show last week and the week before how Michigan State, we set the bar extremely low for those guys. We did not give them much of anything just because there's so much drama surrounding the football programs, surrounding the athletic department, surrounding the university, the NCAA, everything. There's so many distractions, lawsuits, and just crazy negative stories. We set the bar so low. I didn't think this would be a game. I didn't even think this would be worth turning on. When I heard the score, I was just blown away. I was like,
Yeah.
that's not right. I'm still blown away by it. This is an ugly loss. There's no way around it. There's no way to put it. There's no way to spin it. This is a very ugly, nasty loss. Just terrifying if you're a Michigan fan. Is it the end of the world? No. Jim Harbaugh does things at places that no one else can. Why can he not get it done at Michigan? And thank goodness 2020 is here. I don't think anyone's getting fired. We bring Dan Wolken on. I'm going to ask him, what his thoughts are of anyone getting fired. But man,
I will say this though, I do think that I read where his contract is coming up very soon for Jim Harbaugh. The question is, do you extend it or do you look somewhere else? Because I don't think you fire a guy, but if your contract expires, you may actually have to look somewhere else.
Oh, if you got somebody lined up, yeah. And Michigan might be the perfect situation for our team to get a new coach this year. But I think the problems at Michigan are not completely Jim Harbaugh's fault. Now,
Right.
With that being said, I don't think Jim Harbaugh has done he hasn't done Jim Harbaugh things like he's done at other places like Stanford and University of San Diego and places like that. He hasn't done those things yet at Michigan, and we're all still kind of waiting for him. I don't know the answer. I mean, I have not looked or researched this on Michigan, but it could be something so simple that they were missing X amount of players on defense or whatever the issue might be. But man, that was just a horrific, terrifying, just dumpster fire of a loss. Just a terrible loss by Michigan and the Wolverines. Terrible.
And see, the reason that I think that it is the nail in the coffin is because that is the Michigan's largest upset loss since App State in 2007. They entered the game as a 21-point favorite. When they lost to App State, they were a 33-point favorite. That's why I think, because the consistency of Michigan has not been there, I think now Michigan is only 1-6 against Michigan State, I think it is. That's why I think this is the nail in the coffin for Mr. Khaki Pants.
It could be. It could very well be.
And here, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, he's a Michigan man, Michigan alum, played football there at Michigan, has helped that program out for a long time before he returned to coach it. I don't have the answer, Stephen. I don't have the answer. I'd like to hear what is going to happen, and I will keep my ear to the ground on this, but this is bad.
And real quick, I do want to ask you and make this point before we bring our guest on. If you do fire Jim Harbaugh, who do you go after now?
Yeah,
because Brady Hoke didn't work out. You weren't happy with him. Now you went with a man who is Jim Harbaugh, a Michigan guy. That didn't work out. Now, what do you do?
Is this the time to make bad jokes and say Les Miles? I don't know.
But see, he's struggling in Kansas.
Yeah.
So,
I'd like to think that Harbaugh figures some things out. And here's the thing. I mean, every coach has had a bad loss. I mean, Nick Saban lost to Louisiana Monroe. Fear the hyphen. I remember that T-shirt, that billboard that Monroe put out. Every coach has a bad loss here and there.
Right.
And it's not like this was the Sisters of the Poor. This was an in-state rivalry. Now, Michigan State's terrible. I'm not trying to build Michigan State up. I'm trying to spin this or anything of the sort. That's a dumpster fire of a loss.
Right.
But I don't know where Michigan goes on this. Like, I think you got to have a man lined up. I don't know how many Michigan men are in the pipeline. I mean, Tom Brady might be wanting to quit after this year. That's a bad joke too. So I don't know. I don't know.
I just like I said, I don't know what direction they look. But anyway, are you ready to bring in our very special guest for today?
Yeah, let's bring Dan on.
All right, we are about to bring on the writer for the USA Today, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dan Wolken. Dan, how's it going, my friend?
Doing all right. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Dan. How about yourself?
Oh yeah, just it's a Monday, so just trying to get caught up after everything going on this past weekend.
Well, first off, let me go ahead and ask you real quick: are you staying healthy with all of this COVID stuff going on?
Oh yeah, no, knock on wood. So far so good. Haven't had any issues personally, so I try to take a lot of precautions and keep my distance, and so far that's been okay, but got to stay vigilant.
Yes.
Dan, what part of the country are you coming from today?
From Atlanta.
Oh, okay, we miss you here in Memphis.
Okay, appreciate that.
No problem.
I had some great years there.
You did. I used to enjoy your show, your radio show while you were here in Memphis. So
yeah, I had a radio show for about a year, I think, and that was definitely an interesting experience to be on the air talking for 2 hours every day, in addition to writing. That was fun.
I just remember you hating on Tim Tebow all the time, right?
Well,
that was a joke.
Tim Tebow was a great player, but the guy was often worshipped like a deity, and I'm not sure that anyone deserves that kind of adulation.
I hear you. Dan, we were talking about coaching hires and this, and when we had Tony Barnhart on last week and even Mark Schlabach, we asked him the same question. Do you see anybody on the coaching carousel this year, or is it just going to be a gimme year, a mulligan year for everybody?
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily going to be a lot of firings. For one thing, these athletic departments don't have a ton of money right now. They're operating significantly smaller revenues than they're used to. So that is one just key factor. And then also there's got to be some allowance for the fact that this is not a normal year. Certain teams have had key players opt out. You've had COVID issues. It's hard to really evaluate and judge a coach on what happens this season. So I'm not saying that's going to eliminate all the movement, that there aren't any schools that might be willing to pull the trigger, but I do think it's going to be very, very small numbers compared to what we're used to.
Do you think there's going to be any action in Ann Arbor this year?
Well, I mean, the only action that there would be at Michigan is just if Jim Harbaugh decided that he wanted to go pursue an NFL job or something like that. They're not going to fire him. But, is there a scenario where maybe that things get bad enough that they just kind of agree to mutually separate? Yeah, I mean, I think it's not out of the question that could happen. But again, I mean, we'll just have to see. Harbaugh, he's only got 2 years left on his contract, this year and next year, and that's highly, highly unusual in this environment in college football. So at some point, you got to kind of make a decision. You're either going to re-up long term, or you're going to go your separate ways. And so I don't know that they have to make that decision this year, but I certainly think that's possible.
Well, let me just go ahead and switch gears and go down south a little bit. What did you think about the brawl in between Missouri and Florida?
Well, look, it certainly started with a play on the field that was not a good play. It was a dirty play. But at the same time, you have to be able to quickly get people separated, especially at the end of a half like that, get them to the locker room, try to avoid incidents that would put your players in jeopardy of missing time against Georgia the next week, which is, we've seen today, there's been some suspensions for the first half. I think 5 players, so that certainly doesn't help Florida win that game. I do put a lot of responsibility on Dan Mullen because I do think he was an instigator in this situation. I think coming back out and acting like a WWE wrestler to fire up the crowd.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, after you've had that kind of brawl on the field, punches thrown and all that stuff, I think probably the better move is just go to the locker room. I think Mullen escalated the situation. He did not diffuse it. So I thought he frankly was a little bit lucky. Now, I never expected the SEC to suspend him because that's just not what they do. But I think if the commissioner had wanted to do that, was an easy case for it.
Right.
There's a competence problem with officials, and you hear SEC fans and coaches complain. And of course, they're always going to complain when the call doesn't go their way. But do you think there is a competence issue with officiating, not only in the SEC, but just nationwide? I mean, there's no accountability being held. I mean, I know the SEC had the Twitter account, and they said, "Oh, Steve Shaw's going to explain things," and that's just become a parody. I mean, there's nothing from that account or transparency. What are some things that you think we could see or wish we could see coming out of these conferences with officials?
Well, here's the thing: is for these officials, this is a side job for them. This is not their full time. So that is one thing that differentiates them from, say, the NFL. I think it's a hard job. You've really got to invest a lot of time and training and resources into people. And it's not a job that everybody wants to do. I mean, the amount of scrutiny and the pressure, and you've got 90,000 people yelling at you and these coaches all up in your face. And I don't know that everybody is cut out for that. All right. So I say all that to say that the SEC pays the most. They supposedly have the best. And then you sort of go downstream from there, and it progressively gets worse in other conferences. I don't know that there's an easy answer to it unless you are just having, nationalized officials. You train them differently. You pay them better. You assign them at random. The SEC is always going to have these conspiracy theories about where somebody went to school or where their wife went to school or the SEC office being in Birmingham. But they like to have their group of officials that they think are the best. And even at that, they're going to make mistakes. I think where I have more of an issue, because judgment calls are tough and they happen really quickly, is just the use of replay a lot of times. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't really seem to validate the whole idea of why you have replay. And there's supposed to be these protocols for when and how to use replay that seem to be either ignored or mistakenly overlooked or whatever. And that's where I have more criticism than just for the quality of officiating, because I don't think there's an easy answer to that.
What would you do if you were in charge? You get to make all the rules. What would you do to change officiating in the SEC or college football anywhere?
Well, one thing I would do, I'd make the game shorter. I'd get rid of the clock stopping on first downs. I think that would help college football overall. I would get rid of instant replay on every play. I think that slows the game down too much. I see it used so many times for stuff that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I would just go to a challenge system where if you have a play that you want to challenge, you get like the NFL, you get 3 or 2 or whatever per half. And if you use it and you don't get the call, then you lose it. I think that's a more effective way to do it because, first of all, it makes the game go faster, fewer stoppages. And look, human error, if everyone can learn to live with human error in certain areas of the game, that's fine. But the challenge gives you a mechanism. If you feel very strongly that a call was incorrect, you have a chance to have them take a look at it. But when they say they're looking at every play, they're not looking at every play, clearly. And I don't know that they should be looking at every play. But if you say you're going to look at every play, then you need to look at every play or else get rid of it and do something different.
You touched on something that I'd like for you to elaborate on. You're talking about shortening the game of football. For me personally, and yeah, I'm saying it with a smile on my face. When I sit down to watch football, I'm not doing anything for the rest of the day. What are the benefits of shortening the games up?
Well, I mean, if you look at the NFL, and I think one of the things that they're most effective at is their games basically fit into that 3-hour television window. Maybe they're a little bit longer than that, 3 hours, 10, 15 minutes,
Right.
whatever, but they fit into those windows. That is a very watchable window for a sporting event, where you can have people who are not your hardcores, but your casuals hooked in, and they're not itching to change the channel.
Mm-hmm.
I think in college football, you see way too often games that are going over 4 hours. And that's not great for growing your television audience. It's not great for people in the stadium. It's not great for anyone really, because I just think the longer these games go on and the more stoppages there are, they just don't flow as well. It's just not as easy to consume the product. So I think just for the overall health of college football and bringing in more people, keeping those games closer to that 3-hour window would be really helpful.
Sam Pittman and Drinkwitz at Missouri. People are talking about which one of these guys are going to be SEC Coach of the Year. Who do you like out of those two guys?
Well, it's super early, for that. I mean, honestly, I always sort of laugh about the way Coach of the Year awards are handed out. I think, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, basically, you should give it to Nick Saban most years, right? Part of the job is to build the best team. Look, as of right now, I mean, Arkansas has played way, way, way above where anyone expected them to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if the vote were held today, Sam Pittman would win, but we'll see what happens in the last half of the season.
Talk about the other new hires of the conference, Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach. What do you think about things that are going on in the state of Mississippi, along with Deion Sanders going to Jackson State?
Yeah.
Talk about some of the new hires here in Mississippi.
Well, look, Lane, their offense is certainly exciting. He's done a good job. Ole Miss has always had good skill players. That's not anything new. And so when you bring him in to coach guys who are already pretty talented and fast, skilled players at receiver and quarterback and running back, then you're going to score points. They've obviously got a long way to go defensively. They've got a lot of personnel issues on that side of the ball. So for now, they're just going to try to run up and down the field and make it exciting. And they've done a pretty effective job at that. Mississippi State, I think they're bad. They're really bad.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I think Mike Leach, as much as he wants to talk about guys not buying in or malcontents, purges, and all that stuff, that rings a little hollow for me because Mississippi State's not been a bad program. Mississippi State's not been, they're not coming off a bunch of 3-9 seasons, and then you've got to change the culture and all that stuff. Last year they were not great under Joe Moorhead, but they were decent. They got to a bowl game. They were competitive in some of the games they lost. They weren't nearly as bad at their worst point under Joe Moorhead than they are right now. And so I don't know that I really buy into, well, it's the players, it's the malcontents. This is not a total rebuild situation. And I think Leach is not doing himself any favors with that kind of rhetoric, and he's not doing a very good job.
Well, if you had to go ahead and pick right now your top 4 teams, who would they be right now?
Yeah, and obviously with the big caveat that it's super early,
right?
And we have not even seen any Pac-12 teams play this week, although I'm not sure that necessarily will factor in at all. I think Alabama's the best team that I've seen. I think Ohio State's probably number 2. I think Clemson's number 3, although you could certainly order those 3 in a lot of different ways, and I think you'd probably be pretty safe. And as of today, I'd put number 4 Notre Dame in there, but we'll see when they play Clemson this week what they do. I don't think Notre Dame's amazing, but they're good, and we'll see. We'll learn a lot more about them, this week. I would not, as of now, I would not put Georgia in. I would not put a Big 12 team in. I wouldn't put anyone else in the ACC in. So it's kind of slim pickings right now. I mean, honestly, you could argue Cincinnati. Cincinnati's been super impressive.
Yeah.
Actually, I may rethink that. I may put them in at number 4 right now because they've played some pretty good teams and they've really, really dominated them.
With this crazy 2020 season, what's the one thing you've been impressed with?
Well, I mean, if you're like asking me big picture, I mean, it's gone about the way I thought it was going to go. There's been a lot of problems and disruptions, and it's hard. It's hard for everybody to try to pull this off. I'm impressed. I'm just impressed with Alabama. I just, from everything I've seen, the way they've handled everything from COVID to the way that their offense is functioning right now with a quarterback who didn't have a ton of experience coming into the year. Their defense is probably not up to the standards that we're used to seeing for Alabama, but that's not the way Saban's playing anymore. He has embraced playing, aggressive offensive football, and they're really good at it. They're probably better at it than anybody in the country right now. So that's really what I've been impressed with the most.
What about the Bama defense? I mean, last year was Saban's worst defense, and this year looks to top that in a negative way.
Again, he's playing a different way. He's great defense, and I don't know that they will be, but they probably will be better at the end of the year than they were at the beginning. They seem to have made a few strides against Mississippi State. So I don't want to totally write them off yet. But again, when you score the way that Alabama can score, how good do you really need to be defensively?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not too good. I mean, especially if you're putting a point in. Hey, I can hear Bama fans right now tweeting at me and everything else. Well, we pitched a shutout the other night. Our defense is good enough. But again, that offense that they faced was pitiful in Mississippi State. But yeah. What are some things for 2021? We asked Tony Barnhart this the other day when he was on the show with us. How do you see college football developing into 2021 with all the craziness of the corona and everything else going into next year with the pandemic? Do you see things changing a lot, or are we still dealing with some of this?
It's a great question, and it's something that is now we get into the second half of the season that people are going to have to start really locking in on. But again, who knows where we're going to be as a country coming up, into next year? What the vaccine situation is going to be? Do we have one that's really effective? How quickly do people get it? Is it something that you have to take every year? The cases start to subside. These are all questions that I don't think anyone knows, and I'm certainly not qualified to answer. But look, it's affecting recruiting. You're going to have coaches and programs sign players who've never visited or they've never really spent time in person. All the recruiting has been done on Zoom. That's going to impact programs in a variety of ways, positively and negatively. So, I think you're going to have all these changes in college sports with transfer rules, with name, image, and likeness. It's a totally different landscape, and it's all hitting kind of at once. Who knows what the government involvement is going to be in all those issues. Are players going to have spring practice? Are we going to have spring practice?
Yeah.
Who knows, right? So all those things, everyone's going to have to ride this high wire act for a little while longer.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great time, and hopefully we can have you on again.
Yeah, no problem. Enjoyed it, guys. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, man, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Dan, writing for USA Today. He has his ear to college football. I know a lot of fans of different schools either like Dan or dislike Dan.
Right.
That tells you that he's doing his job.
Yes.
And Dan, very informative. Dan is kind of not only has he got his finger on the pulse of college football, sometimes he's right there with the heartbeat of college football, breaking his stories and bringing everything to us. So very grateful for Dan to come on today and, his insight on some things. Stephen, talking about what we asked him there in the last question, Tony Barnhart and Dan both kind of said some of the same things that we're going to see some of this pandemic carry into 2021's football season next year.
Right.
Our stadium's still going to be half full. Or we're not even half full at most stadiums. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this pans out in this pandemic. But hopefully we're kind of getting back to normal. I'll say this, Stephen. I saw someone put toilet paper in someone's yard over Halloween night. So that told me we're getting closer and closer back to normal. So I'm kind of happy about that.
Hey, let's go back and talk about some Big Ten football, if you would like. Let's continue with the highlights from this past weekend. And I got to tell you, man, I'm really interested about these next two teams here, or actually this one particular team, because I don't know if they are sneaky good or if it is they've just been playing bad teams this past 2 weeks, because they played Iowa first and then Illinois. And it is the Purdue Boilermakers, man. Yep. And let me go in and pop this up here for you. What now?
2-0.
Yes, Purdue is now 2-0 for the first time since 2007 and 2-0 in the Big Ten since 2010. And they've done it without their star wide receiver, Rondale Moore, who has not actually taken the field for them just yet.
Yeah, poor Rondale Moore. When he comes back and they lose, they're going to blame everything on him.
Yes.
Give props to Purdue. Hey, if they're the 2020 team, God bless them. Let's see what happens.
Yes.
I'm not putting any stock in that. Poor Lovie Smith, man. Lovie just he can't get it going at all. It's kind of like his coaching career kind of peaked at the Super Bowl, and it's just kind of gone downhill ever since.
Right.
What? That Super Bowl, if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure I do, that was just a raining, miserable Super Bowl. It was a boring game. It wasn't fun. It was in Miami. It was raining. And it just kind of, kind of gone downhill from there. It just not good.
So hats off to Purdue for that win. All right, let's go on ahead and talk up the big football game for this upcoming weekend. It is going to be, now we already showed you the highlights for the Clemson Tigers. Let's go ahead and talk about the Notre Dame and Georgia Tech game. What did you think about Notre Dame's performance in Atlanta?
Impressive, kind of. I meant, Notre Dame is operating at a high level. And, I know most years I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop with Notre Dame.
Yes.
I always think they're pretenders and not contenders. It looks like they're getting a break this week with Georgia Tech. So, with Clemson.
And Trevor Lawrence not being there.
Yeah. So they're getting a break. We've talked about it on the show before that we always kind of hoped, or maybe we said it in private, I can't remember, but I kind of hope personally, I was like, I'd love to see Notre Dame win the ACC this year. They're only going to be a member of the conference for 1 year.
Right.
Great would it be if they were in there 1 year and won and got back out? That would be a fun trivia question years from now. Who won the ACC in 2020? Notre Dame, one of the great programs of college football, and they're one of the great stories this year. If they get the breaks, and it looks like they are without facing Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to tell you, Clemson can still beat Notre Dame and beat them badly without Trevor Lawrence. They can. But it's so much better and easier to face Clemson without Trevor Lawrence. So, it's going to be a fun game. I've never really been a Notre Dame fan, but I do like the underdog. I'm going to be pulling for Notre Dame this weekend.
Notre Dame wins its second straight game against Georgia Tech. Last Georgia Tech win was 2007.
Wow. I'm trying to think. I cannot tell you who was on that 07 team. Maybe Roman Reigns was on that 07 Georgia Tech team. I couldn't tell you.
Maybe.
Maybe's the right answer.
So I'm going to pull you up full screen because I'm having some internet issues, and I'll be right back, okay?
All right. Kind of recapping the games this week as I look at them. You know, we've talked about Georgia, Kentucky. Georgia did not look good in that game last week. But Georgia, I really think we're putting a lot of time and effort toward Florida, and not so much Kentucky. So I'm really looking forward to that Georgia-Florida game this weekend. LSU and Auburn, we haven't got to that yet, and we will talk about it here shortly. I really thought LSU was starting to click and things were starting to come together, and the defense showed improvement and just laid an egg. I mean, a big fat 0 against Auburn, and that was just an ugly, ugly game. Props to Auburn and the Tigers, just kind of manhandling LSU, and a joke. Ole Miss scoring a lot of points against Vanderbilt. You know, Vanderbilt kind of came into that game thinking they kind of had a chance. Ole Miss quickly put that out of reach. Also, Mississippi State and Alabama, talk about putting things out of reach. Good Lord. Alabama just really put it on Mississippi State this past weekend. That game, not even competitive. But as I mentioned in the show on Friday, if Mississippi State didn't win the coin toss, they weren't going to win anything for the rest of the day, and that was proven to be true. Arkansas and A&M, we haven't talked about that game yet. We will talk about it here shortly. Props to Arkansas. Those guys fought from the very beginning, took the lead to start the game. Props to the Razorbacks. Been so impressed with Arkansas so far this season, as we talked to Dan Wolken just a second ago. Sam Pittman at Arkansas is really making things happen. Can Sam Pittman keep everything together there up on the hill in Fayetteville? If he can keep everyone there up on the hill, some big things could happen at Arkansas. But as we all know in college football, when you start hiring assistants and coordinators, you've got to make the right hire. We've seen that now with LSU and Bo Pelini. That was a bad hire by Ed Orgeron. So can Sam Pittman keep that success level up of hiring the right guy? Only time will tell. And also Missouri and Florida. We've already talked about that game on today's show. That game got ugly. It's a black eye for both schools. It's a black eye for the East. It's a black eye for the SEC and college football. Black eye for football in general. That was just a terrible reaction by both teams of a situation that came up. And the SEC office handed out its punishments. Will we see any more punishment come out as the season goes on? We will find out. Again, only time will tell.
That's what it was
Steven,
like.
you back with us, buddy?
Yeah, man, and that's what it was like down in Gainesville. I had to throw that in there. All right, man. You know, honestly, we've talked a lot this season about the Big Ten, the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC. However, we have not talked a lot about Conference USA.
I thought you were going to go to the MAC on that one.
No,
we haven't talked about Conference USA.
And there was actually a decent game that was on Facebook this past weekend that nobody got to see. It was actually an overtime game, and Louisiana Tech, obviously, unfortunately for any UAB fans out there, Louisiana Tech got the win over UAB 37-34. So let me go ahead and roll the highlights. And actually, UAB took a big lead in this game and then ultimately squandered away that win. And that was a huge win for La Tech. And real quick, when we get through with the highlights, I'm also going to show you the reaction of the players inside the locker room after that game.
Yeah, what's going on in the state of Louisiana? I mean, La Tech, you know, with the lead here. And then, you know, we've also seen Billy Napier's teams get down early, real early, and sometimes they come back. LSU's been getting down early. What's going on in the state of Louisiana where these teams are just getting down early? I mean, La Tech had the lead, but they just kind of squandered it. If there's a state that's been affected more by COVID, I don't know what it is, but I would guess Louisiana would be up there. I mean,
right.
I don't know if it's the voodoo magic escape in New Orleans or what, but there's problems in the sportsman's paradise. There's problems in Louisiana.
And that ended a 3-game losing skid to UAB for La Tech. So that was a really, really, really exciting thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hopefully my internet will work and let this play. I'm going to mute my mic because I do not want any echo here. And I'm going to play for you the reaction of the players in the locker room. And from what I could tell, there was no bad language. So that's the good news. Man, that sounded like a lot of fun in that locker room, bud.
Was that social distancing?
No, not at all. But man, with the water and everything, dude, that's so exciting for them.
Props to La Tech. Props to the program. Props to that team. And I'll say this about the folks in Rushton, Louisiana. They love the Bulldogs down there. That is a very proud program down there, and La Tech should be a proud program. I look for La Tech. I've always wondered why La Tech was not able to build and get to a better conference and make things happen. Maybe the stepping stone will happen now with all the crazy pandemic stuff. I really think a lot of programs are going to struggle financially, and some teams and some universities are going to use this avenue to move on the way up. Will La Tech be one of those? I don't know. But I do think you're going to start seeing some shuffling going on in conferences here in the years to come. And it'll come back to this pandemic. But I really like that La Tech, the very proud program there of Rushton, Louisiana, making some things happen this past Saturday. And, props to the Bulldogs. Good for them.
I agree with that. And unfortunately, UAB dropped that game due to a fumble in overtime, which ultimately led La Tech to kick a game-winning field goal.
Wow.
Let's go ahead and move on to another big game. And actually, this one was a huge controversial game. I am still pissed off about this. It is the Red Raiders of Oklahoma State. I'm sorry, the Cowboys of Oklahoma State taking on the Texas Longhorns. What did you think about this game?
Business decisions were made before the game, during the game. I don't understand. I will say this. I talked about this on the show on Friday. If you missed Friday's show, feel free to pull it up. I predicted that Oklahoma State could easily lay an egg in this game. And Oklahoma State did lay an egg in this game. They gave Texas hope, keeping the game close. And then when replay came about, I don't know what's going on in the Big 12. I don't know why they want to protect Texas. I don't know what in the world's going on. I don't know why coaches have to wear sunglasses at night. But I don't understand the situation there in the Big 12. I don't understand protecting Texas. I don't understand. Texas has already destroyed one conference in the Southwest Conference with their greed. They've destroyed a rivalry with Texas A&M because of their greed. I don't understand why the Big 12 is letting Texas continue to destroy the Big 12 conference with greed. But there's a situation there that needs to be addressed. Our guest Dan, we've got issues with officiating in college football, and I have no idea why this was brought up and what's going on with the University of Texas.
And let me go ahead and play this for you. This is actually from the broadcast on the call of the game this past weekend, and hopefully you guys can hear and understand this. So let me go ahead and play this. I'm going to mute my mic again so that there is no echo on my end.
The football hits the ground, but does he have control prior to, during, and after it touches the ground? That's a good look there. Right there, the ball's on the ground. Does he have control? I see both hands on the football. The ruling on the field was a catch, so if it's not clear and obvious, they can't change it.
And Dean, I don't see the ball move after it hits the ground. Do you?
No, and that's the key. And we use language like move or loss of control. It can move slightly, but does he ever lose?
Steven.
They overturned that call, and they said originally it was a catch. Then they came back and said it hit the ground. He did not control it. 4th down, Texas gets the ball back because Oklahoma State had to punt.
I don't know what to say. I just know it's a close call. It was a judgment call. I thought it was a catch. A lot of people thought it was a catch. I can understand where you're coming from when you don't think it's a catch. I get it. I won't disagree with you. I can give you the leadway on that. But the Big 12, they're out of the playoff again this year, and
and it's more like the Big 12 had rather make a statement like, okay, we would rather be out of the 4-team playoff than to let any other team besides Texas and Oklahoma have any of the pie.
yeah.
You know, we've talked about this before. You talked about the analogy of you stay in we're going to put you in this box. You stay in this box, and as long as you stay in this little box, you will be just fine. But if you ever try to come out of the box, then we're going to have issues with you.
Well, Stephen, that's American society and everyday people and people in their own lives. People want to put you in a box and keep you there, and when you start coming outside that box, they get mad, and it's none of their business.
Yes.
To better yourself or broaden your horizons. You know, I don't understand the thought process of college football sometimes. I don't understand why do we have to have conference officials?
I know.
I don't understand that. You know, why aren't officials all graded? You know, we grade like Major League Baseball. They grade every player. They give him a number. You know, he's a plus this. We give him a WAR. We assign him a WAR number. You know, we do so many things with players and recruits and give them stars. Why can't officials just – I don't understand why we can't do that. Why can't we just have a ranking system for officials, and the further you move up the ladder, you get to call the better games. The worse you are, you move down or you get completely put out. I don't understand why we have conference officials, why we have to assign certain officials to certain games. Why can't we just rank them and put them where they deserve to be?
I agree with that. There is also I'm sorry,
You're buzzing hard today, man.
I'm sorry. I'm watching the show on my feed and to make sure everything looks good, and people keep texting me and I keep getting notifications. So I apologize about that. All right. There is
phone like right by the is your phone right by the microphone? Because it's like
yes.
Yeah. It's like super loud.
Sorry, man.
It's all right. There's bigger problems in the world today, like college officials.
Yes. There was also another controversial call in that game that ultimately gave Texas a first down, in which they went on ahead and scored a touchdown. It was a complete BS call, in my opinion. And a person on Twitter allowed me to use his GIF for this video. So I want to send out my thanks to him for doing that.
For the viewers that are watching, is it GIF or GIF? I always get them.
Yes.
Put it in the comments so I'll know. Is it GIF or GIF?
Right. Watch this, though. Watch this. The defender does not even touch the Texas receiver. He just falls down. But yet to protect the Texas Longhorns, they have to throw the flag. Are you kidding me? He lost his balance. The guy did not even touch him. Give me a break.
You know, I try to give the benefit of the doubt to other people. The official that threw the flag, I'm guessing he thought that their feet were tangled. He tripped. He fell. Again, why can't we have a ranking system? Like if that call was made and after the game, we go through the film, we grade the officials, like that clearly was a bad call. We're going to dock you on that.
Right.
You know, now he's not calling as big a game next week. And I'm not saying we have to throw him into the lake of fire for life, you know. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you do good things happen. You do bad things happen. You do good things, you get better games. We want you calling the better games. You're a better official. If you keep making these bad calls, you're going to get worse games. I just don't
why it is. You know why it is?
Why's that?
And money screws everything up when it comes to college sports and college football. I'm just here to tell you.
You know, what did Mason PDD say? I don't understand people with short money.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't understand. I guess my money's too short, Stephen.
I don't know, but I definitely agree that Oklahoma State got hosed in that game, and unfortunately, you know, Texas was protected, and yada yada yada. Same old crap, different day, you know.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to another controversial call. But before we do that, I do want to give props to the Ole Miss Rebels because they went into Nashville and absolutely beat down on Vandy. This was a good rebound for the Lane Train.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, Stephen, I'm pulling it up on my phone. You know, I believe in the power of prayer. DeMarcus Thomas, the Ole Miss player, got injured in practice today in Oxford. There's some reports coming out on that. DeMarcus, my prayers are with you. I am sorry if this incident happened. He is not responding. They are afraid he might be paralyzed. I know a couple of people have reported some things on it already. I did see an article pop up right before the show. I didn't get to read it on Saturday Down South. DeMarcus, we're all pulling for you, buddy. And I really hate that this is going on. We don't understand everything in life, but we're pulling for you. We're praying for you. We're hoping for the absolute very best. And pull through, buddy. We want you to.
Absolutely. And I thought that it would be best to pull you up full screen for that. Because man, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, you know, we all know the story about Chucky Mullins and
yes,
with Chucky and you know, the famed number 38 jersey at Ole Miss and the patch that the players the captains sometimes wear. You know, I just really hope that
that story is false.
Yeah, I hope it's false, and if it is true, we hope there's a great ending at the very end of this.
Yes. Well, let's go in and talk about the Ole Miss and Vandy game. Man, what did you think about the performance of Matt Corral and of Elijah Moore? Both of them had huge games on Saturday.
It was a yawner, right?
Elijah Moore. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, man.
Fine.
Elijah Moore, 14 receptions, 238 yards, and 3 touchdowns, all in the first half.
Matt Corral, 19 straight completions. If I'm not mistaken, I believe I was at the game. Eli Manning, his first start as a starter at Ole Miss, his sophomore year, first game of the year, Memorial Day weekend that year. I cannot remember who they played, but I believe Eli set the record for most completed passes, or maybe he got one shy. And I believe the record at the time was being held by Peyton. Props to the Mannings on setting those records at the time, but Matt Corral breaking the record, 19 straight completions. And hey, last week, Ole Miss fans wanted to run Matt Corral out of Oxford. They wanted to run him out of Oxford for the poor play and poor performance. And how does Matt Corral respond? He comes out and breaks the record. Against Vanderbilt, yeah, but hey, he still broke it. Didn't matter who he played. He still did it. So massive props to Matt Corral. Last week he looked like the worst player on the field. This week he looks like the best player in the nation. So, hey, good for him. Props to Matt Corral, and that was a very impressive performance against Vanderbilt.
Yes, and poor Vandy, man. I mean, I don't think that they could even win a game unless
Say it.
Unless they could get Mississippi State this weekend, because that offense is really bad.
Yeah.
And, dude, how bad would that be if Mike Leach lost to Vandy in his first year?
I'm trying to think of a great word. It would just be
Woo!
I'm going blank here on this, but man, if Mississippi State lost to Vanderbilt, that would just be I'm gonna steal the Vince McMahon, Brian Haydad word, putrid. That would be a putrid
Yes.
beginning to the Leach era. Is that game next? I've got a couple of stats.
Yes, it's Vandy this weekend for Mississippi State.
As far as us talking about games, are we going to go over what's our next game that we're about to go about the highlights on? Yeah, go on and bring it up. Here's some crazy stats about Mississippi State and how horrible things are. Before the Alabama game, since the LSU game, and before the Alabama game, so since LSU and before Alabama, 40% of all offensive drives have ended in a turnover.
Right.
40%. You're not going to beat nobody, with turning the ball over at 40%. I mean, Steven, turn over 40% of your paycheck. Turn over 40% of what you eat. Turn over 40% of the air you breathe. I mean, whatever. 40% is a ton.
Yes.
Why in the world? What's the problem in Starkville of keeping the football? So, here's the thing with Mississippi State. They got 5 offensive linemen only, and people are bringing 3. The rush is 3 defensive linemen, and 5 can't block 3. That's bad. You're not going to win a game that way. But turning the ball over 40% of the time, you're not going to win the game that way. Mississippi State's doing both of those things. I mean, it's just, yikes.
All right. Can we go back to the leagues protecting football teams for a second?
Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
Where am I going?
Are you going with the targeting calls, or are you going with the instant replay, or both?
Just go ahead and roll this.
Yeah.
Now, if this was a Mississippi State player on Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith, personal foul, targeting, defense. Watch number 28 right here, folks. Watch him. Boom! That, my friends, is targeting. But yet, and watch this. Watch this. Boom! To the head. How does anybody protect Alabama and say that, oh, that's not targeting? That is textbook targeting.
Yeah, it is. And come to think about it, if I'm not mistaken, Bama is off this coming up weekend.
And then they get LSU.
And then the next weekend's LSU. I mean, we can afford to have guys sitting first half against LSU. I mean,
Dude, it's so frustrating as a football fan to see the high teams be protected.
I understand when people say business decision. I understand when it's for more money for the conference. Okay. But your chain is only strong as its weakest link, and it's becoming a joke. The credibility of the SEC office is no longer in question. It's extremely questionable.
Yeah.
I mean, you send me a box of chocolates from the SEC, I'm scared to touch it.
Yes.
This is a joke. There's so many things that are just out of whack right now. So many things. So I really wish that the SEC would start figuring some things out.
But they're not. They're not. They're going to protect Alabama.
They're not. I think of the great Mark Twain quote on this: "When in doubt, tell the truth."
Yeah.
And conferences are not doing that, and the SEC is included. It's a joke. It's a sham. It's a joke. It's putrid. It's hot garbage. It's a dumpster fire. It's you know what? The best word I can think of is Charles Barkley. It's just horrible.
Well, I tell you what wasn't terrible this past weekend, moving on, and that was the performance of number 8 Texas A&M. And I got to tell you, man, they are sneaking around as a one-loss football team, and nobody is talking about them.
Good. A&M, a good college football team.
Yes.
I don't know if they're great yet, but I do know they're improving. I do know that they're right there, and hopefully, A&M can make some fun happen toward the end of the season here. I'm pulling for A&M. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Aggies can do. People complain about their fan base being crazy. Well, that's what makes college football great, are crazy fans.
Yes.
That's why you're watching us right now. You're a little bit crazy watching us, right? So I'm really enjoying watching A&M this year. We've beat up on Kellen Mond. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I just don't think he's a great quarterback. He's a good quarterback. Kellen Mond is always going to keep his team in the game, but he's also going to keep the other team in the game as well.
Right.
Steven, off the top of your head, I do not have my notes with me that I always bring with me. What has A&M got left this season as far as the schedule goes?
I know they got to face Ole Miss, and I know they got to face LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Because and Auburn.
Sounds like 3 wins to me.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how this is going to pan out. I believe they've got Missouri left. Have they already played Missouri? I don't think they have.
No.
So I know they got Missouri left.
Oh, no, they got South Carolina coming up too. They go to Columbia.
There's some A&M 9-1 at the end of the season.
I mean, they could back their way, even not without playing in the SEC championship game. They could back their way into the 14 playoff.
You know what? And I hope the SEC office, if you're going to protect somebody, protect A&M.
Yeah.
I mean, I disagree with protecting anybody. But, A&M's starting to make some things happen. Who would have thought in a pandemic year, Jimbo Fisher, who hadn't done diddly poo jack squat in College Station, that Jimbo Fisher would be the surprise team of 2020. I didn't see it coming.
And especially with all of the opt-outs that they had down there too.
Yeah.
Well, man, we've already talked about, and by the way, let me just go ahead and say, Texas A&M has now beaten Arkansas every single year since they joined the SEC in 2012.
Man, that's I did not know that. That kind of shocked me when you told me that.
Yeah. All right. We've already talked about Florida and Missouri. Do you want to talk about it anymore, or do you want to just move on?
Let's move on. That fight's ugly. Everything keeps going back to the fight. I got a feeling we'll be talking about the suspensions on the show on Friday. So, yeah, let's just move on.
Dude, we have one final game to get to, and I was actually really, really surprised by this outcome, and I'm sure you will be too. Virginia knocked off Mac Brown and North Carolina in Virginia this past weekend. And it was Virginia snapped a 4-game losing streak versus AP-ranked football team. So my question to you is, what in the world has happened to Mac Brown? You were saying a couple of weeks ago he never loses games like this. Well, Virginia was a 1-4 football team coming into this football game.
Man. And if I'm not mistaken, the Cavs, the Who's, I believe Keaton Thompson got in and played. Keaton, the former quarterback at Mississippi State, and a lot of Mississippi State fans wanted Keaton to be the quarterback last year.
Right.
And didn't get a shot. Rightfully, wrongfully, I don't know which, but then Leach comes in and he hits the transfer portal and he's out. And here's the thing, Keaton Thompson was going to be the man that destroyed every record at quarterback for Mississippi State. He was going to destroy all of Dak's records. He's a great quarterback to fit the system perfectly. And 2 coaching changes later, he's not even part of the school anymore. But the Who's, man, it still blows my mind that the Who's hung in here and made this happen. I have not seen anything, and I didn't look. Maybe I should have. But North Carolina, what were they missing from that game? I mean, were there a couple of key guys out with injury or with the pandemic or whatever it might be? I mean, it's crazy to see what has happened with Mac Brown and all this. It still blows my mind that that happened. But again, 2020 giving us another upset and something that we can talk about.
Yes, and so, man, it's exciting as always. But, guys, we really want to thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Stingray Show. And hopefully, Friday will be a lot better because we're actually going to have a Pac-12 guy come on for the first time. So, tomorrow is Election Day. Don't anybody get nervous about the outcome because simply, it doesn't matter who wins. We're still going to be the best country in the entire world. So,
and Steven is proud to announce he's endorsing. No.
Yeah, I'm not touching that question with a 10-foot, 100-foot, 1,000-foot pole.
I almost asked Dan Wolken if he could pick a college football coach to run America to be our president. Who would he pick? But I thought it was too lame of a question, so I left it out. So
yes, and too controversial right now, and especially with the issue of the cancel culture. We don't need anything to cancel us right now. So,
man, Stephen, this is me solving the world's problems here very shortly. You can make a simple statement. I can make a simple statement of I love my family, and someone on Twitter would take that, twist that. Well, who says your family is the typical family? My family is this. Well, if someone doesn't have a typical family, and I'm like, I didn't say anything about that. I love my family. And how can you make that controversial?
I know.
But everybody's offended by something these days.
Yes.
You know?
So
Yeah.
that's why we try to stay very sports oriented here on this show.
Maybe we should have like a PG-13 show where we get a little, subscribers only.
We may, but not right now. Not while we're trying to still build. Okay. So, guys, thank you for tuning in. And on Friday, we would love for you guys to participate in the show once again. So go ahead and think about your questions. Go ahead and send those in to myself and Heath. We can drop you the link in your DM, and you can actually join the show for us and ask us questions and talk with us on the Friday edition of the show.
I hope Sheila reaches out to us. I'm liking Sheila coming on the show each week.
Yeah, she was actually going to come on today, but I decided with Chris Wolken and all of the highlights we had to get to that we would save the viewership part of the show for Friday.
I always want to talk to Sheila.
Yes, she's really a fine person. So.
It seems like it.
So anyway, all right, man. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show. Hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Get out and vote tomorrow, regardless of who you like, who you don't like. It is your job to go out and vote.
Steven, have a wonderful Monday. See you Friday, bud.
All right. Thank you.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest. Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. He's got it.